Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to this special broadcast, part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav series on Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha. Do you know India is the largest provider of generic drugs globally? Accounting for over 20% share in the global supply, the Indian pharmaceutical sector plays a significant role by manufacturing 60,000 different generic brands across 60 therapeutic categories. Over 60% of global demand for various vaccines, about 40% of generic demand in the US, and 25% of all medicines in the UK are met by the Indian pharma sector. 65 to 70% of WHO vaccines are sourced from India. 7 out of top 20 global generic companies are from India by 2020 values. As per the Indian Economic Survey 2021, the Indian pharma industry is worth $42 billion, expected to grow 3 times in the next decade, likely to reach $120 to $130 billion by 2030. But how did the Indian pharma sector grow by leaps and bounds? What have been some distinct watershed moments that the Indian pharmaceutical industry has witnessed over the decades to earn the country the moniker of being the pharmacy of the world? That growth story is what we will bring forth on this special program on Sansad TV with distinguished panelists who are joining us on the program. I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Sanjay Singh, Director and CEO, Genova Biopharmaceuticals Limited. Thank you, sir, for your time. Welcome to Sansad TV. Also, pleased to welcome Mr. Jayant Sitaram Karve. He is Founder, Director and CEO, R-Cube Life Sciences. Thank you, sir, for your time. Welcome to Sansad TV. And Professor N.K. Ganguly, former DG, Indian Council of Medical Research. Professor Ganguly, glad to have you back on my show. Welcome to this special program.
Thank you.
Allow me to begin the program today with you, as the senior-most panel on the program today. From being non-existent somewhere in the 1960s, the Indian pharma industry today is worth $42 billion and expected to grow at least 3 times in the next decade, meeting over 60% of the global vaccine demand. How do you look back at this journey of the Indian pharmaceutical sector from being non-existent to now becoming a world leader?
Actually, we invested very well. Like we set up first the institutes like Central Drug Research Institute, Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, National Chemical Laboratories, as well as IIIM, etc. So this was many of the manpower from these have gone to the industry. Secondly, we also set up some manufacturing hub, although they were making generics, but they provided trained manpower like IDPL, which was manufacturing generic drugs from Government of India, Mukteswar plant for penicillin, etc. And moving forward, these the 2 vaccine institutes, one in the Kasauli and the other is Kunur. They provided, now you take any vaccine industry which established, they man those areas. So our investment on these areas are playing fruit. The watershed areas which you talked about came when we provided HIV drugs to the entire world. The CIPLA took this step and the HIV generics were provided to the entire world. And that particular gap actually saved millions of lives, because these were affordable to people. Before that, they were not affordable. And India also, nobody is now dying because of the HIV. The second watershed thing which India has done is it is providing most of the anti-tubercular drugs around the world. There are several companies led by Lupin. They are providing most of the anti-tubercular drugs around the world. Then the third area with which actually we will be blessed around, although Gilead discovered it, but ultimately in India was reeling with the hepatitis C infection, and hepatitis C drug was manufactured in India. That was again a watershed moment. There are now, from the generics, we have moved to better formulations and ANDAs, and we had also moved to new drug discoveries. Maybe in the second round, I will talk about new drug discoveries.
Absolutely.
But we have also moved to biotherapeutics. Sanjay is here, so I'm not talking about one of his drugs. He is the best poised to do this. But during the COVID, again, we almost walked Like we did the Remdesivir, we did the Omicron, we did that. We also competed and got the Merck drug, which the Pfizer drug, which at the moment is the game changer in the COVID treatment. We also created a nasal shield, which Glenmark actually has marketed it. So we actually walked side by side with most of the other anti-inflammatory products.
Certainly.
So
So,
I will
even
say,
though the COVID pandemic has, it was the worst health crisis that the world faced in over a century, Dr. Singh, but the Indian pharma sector lived up to its moniker of providing drugs not just to the Indian, people who were suffering, but also worldwide to countries that were in need. And that is something that has, once again brought the spotlight on the growth of the Indian pharma sector. That, of course, would not have been possible without, the contribution of the various companies that have worked over the decades. Of course, there have been various policies that have, in fact, Mr. Ganguly mentioned about some of these watershed moments. But how would you look back at these decades gone by, wherein, the Indian pharma sector has grown exponentially? Some of the factors that you see have particularly helped in this growth story of the pharma industry in the country.
As Professor Ganguly mentioned, there are two very important pillars for it. One is the scientific base, which include knowledge and training. And the second is the size of our own population. So these two things has also driven a lot to our pharmaceutical industry. And once we crossed that barrier, we moved forward and we moved to the global scenario. And when we have moved to the global scenario, the biggest gain came for most of the companies which are working in this area. But during the COVID season, because everybody wanted to keep their supplies limited for their own population, because they were needing. But in case of our pharma products, we were not having even one PPE kit made in India before this, and suddenly we turned around and we started exporting during that period. So same with diagnostic kits, same with the generic medicine, and same with the vaccine. So this, I will say, a new change has come in last 2 years, and primarily here both components are responsible. One is the government readiness to take the challenge, along with this whole system machinery, which is like regulatory departments of pharmacy, all those kind of things, but also the kind of need India had in-house and outside. So that made a huge change. Now, going from here onwards, can we maintain that kind of momentum? What's our lesson we have learned in last 2 years?
Absolutely.
Not only last 30 years we are in business, but last 2 years very important. And how we can keep this momentum and take the leadership position, not only in terms of supplying the generic medicine, but this has given opportunity for us to move into the innovative side of the business.
Certainly. And of course, looking at the challenges that still persist, we have to be future ready in the wake of, the crisis that we have just faced. In fact, we're not over the pandemic and the newer challenges that keep emerging, especially when it comes to the, health sector. But Mr. Karve, coming to you, we have successfully turned the COVID crisis into an opportunity. The manner in which Dr. Singh spoke about how we did not have enough PPE kits in the first place. Then, within a very short span of time, we started even exporting it to the world. So, of course, this journey and also having our own indigenous vaccine in less than a year, having successfully vaccinated almost the entire country in such a short period of time, that, of course, has been remarkable. But what are the other kind of lessons that we have learned which are going to enable us to deal with such kind of future crisis?
I think this particular crisis has really given India outlook in terms of how Indian industry should move forward. One of the area wherein there is a lot of thrust and there is a lot of opportunity, that is primarily because of the innovations. Currently, if you see the industry as well as the government and various stakeholders, there is a lot of interaction which is happening between the multiple stakeholders. Previously, if you see the medical medical institution will not talk with the engineering institution, or the engineering institution will not talk with the management institution. So they were working in the silos. And suddenly this pandemic has opened up a new avenue wherein all these multidisciplinary teams started working towards a common goal, identifying unmet clinical needs, working towards them. As rightly mentioned by Dr. Sanjay as well as Dr. Ganguly, I think a lot of newer opportunities has come up, a lot of new innovations has come up. In fact, Indian manufacturing in terms of PPEs has really excelled. We are seeing a lot of innovations coming in picture now. There is a lot of thrust from Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, as well as Startup India. In fact, if you really focus on the medical device side of it, still we have a long way to go. Having said that, we are seeing some early successes wherein our industry has come forward, our innovators have come forward, and that is really going to create an opportunity for the Indian industry.
So before, I begin talking about the future of this industry, a quick question, Dr. Karve, about, the kind of support that the government provided to the domestic pharma industry during the COVID pandemic. So the kind of preparedness that we saw and the kind of faith that was, reposed in the industry, of course, and it stood up to the test very, very successfully. So the kind of support in terms of policies and the kind of support that would be required to actually, stand the test of time.
Absolutely. In fact, the way government is coming up, there is a huge investment. There are 4 technology parks which are coming up in India right now for the medical devices particularly. There is a lot of thrust in terms of the regulations, harmonizing the regulations. In fact, if I talk about the medical device regulations, in 2017, Government of India has came up with the regulations. Our regulations are harmonized as per the international standards, making it much more easier for our industry to comply with the regulations. Also, there is a lot of thrust in terms of innovations. There are a lot of schemes coming forward. There are a lot of cells which are facilitating regulatory clearances side of it. And the whole logistic, in fact, we have seen the disruption of the logistics during the COVID pandemic. I think the government has really helped industry to come forward. There are a lot of approvals been given, as well as a lot of capacity has been generated. So these are the few areas wherein government has really come forward and given a trust as one of the important stakeholders.
Professor Ganguly, of course, innovation matters, not just, for the domestic pharma industry, but also the fact that we are now such an important player in the global market. Innovation is where we need to still work upon. What is the kind of collaboration that is required in terms of, boosting new ideas? And this is one area where we are particularly lagging behind. So the kind of efforts that would be required to make us future ready and for the growth of the industry in the times to come?
Actually, if we really look at it, there were a lot of collaborations in India with other companies happened, which changed the world's picture. One, the entities that non-topical diseases, the neglected topical diseases, and the malaria, India did collaborate and provided the world the medicines. Like the first anti-malarial point of care was provided by India to the world. All the ICTs were provided by India to the world. In the Leishmania, whether it was oral miltefosine, or whether it was paromycin combos, or one dose ambisome, all of these were provided by India to the global world through collaborations. One of the things which you actually told will be very useful. Now the world has taken this as a major challenge, and they are collaborating in a lot of areas. Like in the new polio vaccines area, a lot of collaborations is happening in the major companies. And some of the things which have come up in the technology, which has also come with the collaboration. Like one of the world's first subunit rabies vaccine, which is the first protein rabies vaccine, has just been launched in India. And so the collaborations within Indian companies will be very, very important. And innovations, when I will not describe it because Sanjay is sitting here, these 2 drugs come from him. one of the savers, the clot buster, which could be given even in the ambulance as a bolus, was provided to India in a much cheaper rate by Sanjay. I hope he talks about it. And the same way for the hemorrhagic stroke, a drug was provided which actually will save life. So there are drugs in the neuroscience, there are drugs in the diabetes, the sitagliptin. The patent was broken by India and the drug is now available in the market, although the patent has gone now. But in this way, a lot of new things are coming up in India, which are being innovated or which are coming up with the collaborations or getting technology from the universities around the world. Many of the universities around the world have provided India an opportunity to develop their point of concepts into actual drug and formulations and provide it to the world. The two weaknesses I will cite that we are still dependent on APIs from China.
Yes.
Although government has taken some steps on this direction, but this dependence is enormous. Actually, if they stop supplying, our pharma industry will be reeling. The second area, our regulations, we need to stop, although we provide very high quality drugs with very good bioavailability and PK/PD values, but even then there are barriers in the developed world which actually stops our drug to go for going there, the new drugs, particularly in biotherapeutics or immunotherapeutics. So this is where our regulation need to be much more better and help our industry to move forward.
Okay, let me go across.
Lastly,
Sure.
there is a new thing in the Ayush medicines or phytopharmaceuticals. The China is a leader in this area around the globe, and we need to concentrate on that. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Singh, two areas of concern where I would like you to come in. One, of course, is, how to enhance innovation activities in our country. And the second being the over-dependence, the API dependence on China. So if I'm not wrong, close to about 90% of our raw materials are coming from China. And so this, of course, is a major setback. So especially during the COVID pandemic, when, of course, and the repercussions are being felt even now due to disruptions in supply chain, how did we deal with it? And to reduce this dependence, how are we, looking at the future?
So I will answer one by one. So
sure.
First, I would come back on the innovation. For innovation, innovation is always need-based. Need-based. So where we should innovate and what we should innovate. So first, if me as a scientist and a CEO of the company, we found that there is a huge increase in the cardiovascular disease in India, and we were not having the third generation thrombolytic. So we innovated the platform to manufacture it. The innovative manufacturing platform, we brought the thrombolytic and its third generation thrombolytic, and at present we are treating thousands of people every day. The same way in stroke happens. It was a tough journey for us, but we finally succeeded, got global patent, and the drug is saving thousands of people every month. But this innovation is not enough because we have to reach to the district level, and so we are innovating with other collaborations like bringing artificial intelligence, bringing institutions like AIMS, bringing the government together and building this ecosystem. So innovation, we can perfect here, and we can not only supply to the national needs, but also this innovation can go globally and competitive globally. The second part will say that yes, we have to be at the forefront of the cutting edge science, and COVID gave us opportunity for looking into the vaccine, and at the end we succeeded making the first mRNA vaccine outside US and third overall in the world, and the vaccine has been given approval. But for this, a lot of help has been given from the Government of India, Department of Biotechnology, especially the regulatory affairs, including the Office of the Prime Minister. He forced us that can we think of making this vaccine at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade, because this, again, I'm saying need-based innovation, because we cannot supply this vaccine at minus 70 degree in India or most of the LMICs.
Yes.
Now coming back on the dependence, so for example, for these raw material for the most advanced technology, we were totally dependent upon the West, but we have started the whole program along with vaccine where we started doing backward integration. And today we can say 70% of the raw materials is required. We are producing in-house inside the company or with our partners in the company. So this need-based innovation, perfecting it for the global market, and backward integrating the raw material, this is, I think, the mantra for success. And we cannot work in isolation. We have to collaborate with local institutions, local academics institutions, local research institutions, and also we have to collaborate globally. For example, Genoa has a program on Leishmania vaccine. It is going to be presented next week. Professor Ganguly is going to be one of the chair in Colombia, and there we have collaborated. It is US FDA. Genoa has a collaboration with US FDA, McGill University, University of Ohio, University of Nagasaki, and ICMR here, and we are developing this CRISPR-Cas9, another one of the most advanced technology, globally most advanced technology, and hopefully this vaccine will see the day very early. So I'm saying collaboration is critical, need-based innovation is critical. We have to competitive so we can take our innovation globally, and the last is we have to do backward integration.
Certainly. So, Dr. Singh, I would like to wish you all the best for next week's event. Dr. Karve, coming to you, when we talk about collaborations, another area of emphasis has been how to enhance industry-academia linkage. And if we do that, perhaps, towards becoming future-ready, that is one critical step. So what are the kind of steps that is being undertaken now? So we have undertaken decades of our journey. It's been remarkable. But, of course, to sustain the momentum and, go up higher from there, we have to think of newer ways, which is most importantly need-based. So how is that kind of linkage being established?
So I think if you see the world is very much focused on the innovations, and the industry as well as academia is realizing the value of innovations in general. To move forward, I think, as I previously said, the silos have been getting broken, and there is more and more of collaboration which is happening, not only amongst the industry and academia, but also amongst the academia itself. And if you see currently, India is becoming the innovation hub in the global scenario, wherein a lot of innovators are working on collaboratively. There are a lot of centers which are supporting these innovative technologies. There are a lot of incubators which are supporting and basically focusing on unmet clinical needs is again a mantra for the innovations. And if you see the current state of burden, I think non-communicable diseases still are on a higher side. Around 50 to 60% of the burden, disease state burden, comes on it, and the collaboration between the clinicians, the technologists, and the scientists, as well as the industry, and facilitation by the government in terms of the regulatory pathways. I think these are all the things which will help the innovative minds to generate solutions and implement them.
Professor Ganguly, a related question on the challenges, the kind of competition that we are facing from several countries like, of course, China, Japan and Israel when it comes to production and supply of medicines. And the second aspect, that the kind of lobbying that that our companies, the Indian pharma companies, face from the big pharma sector globally. We've seen that happen over the last 2 years, especially during the COVID crisis. And even in the future, such kind of lobbying will continue. So how do we take care of that? How do we tackle those problems?
Actually, India doesn't violate any patent. It doesn't violate any global laws. It is a very law-abiding country in this particular matter. But India needs to put force into one area that, like one of the best example is Sweden, where every faculty in the university can open up a startup company. And these startup companies actually are the discoverers. Big companies don't take big risks to discover things. And these startup companies provide to the big companies the molecules which they are doing at the moment. Like some of the COVID vaccines, which were taken up by the big companies, were actually made in the startup and small companies. And then they were made other. Sanjay Singh's company is, of course, an exception that they made the messenger RNA vaccine themselves, with, of course, a little collaboration from here and there. Mm-hmm. But so this is one area where we need to empower, and we need to support our startups which at the moment are being expanded. And we have three major programs to support them. One is the BioRack, which does the small business funding as well as the large business funding. Other is the Technical Development Board of the DST, which helps you by providing money to 50% money to really open up a company to manufacture things which you have innovated. And the third is Nimitli, which is done by the CSIR for innovation of academia industry participation. So these are some of the very good steps which have been taken. We need to give tax relief. We need to give innovations a lead and provide regulatory atmosphere so that those innovations go faster. If those innovations, like Sanjay he was reluctant to tell it, he had discovered his vaccine quite way back, but he had to struggle for several years to put, not several years, at least an year and a half to put this vaccine now to the fruition. Now it will be in the market. So this pace need to be shortened. And
Certainly,
the
you know,
review
since
mechanisms
you
as
mentioned
well
this
as
problem, and Dr. Singh is there with us on the panel. Dr. Singh, what are, of course, these are shortcomings which delay the innovation. What is the solution to it? If we are to grow, you know, by leaps and bounds, and if we aim to grow into an industry which is worth $130 billion in the next few years or so, these are shortcomings, these are roadblocks that we need to overcome. So how do we tackle these?
So basically, the regulatory agencies has a big challenge when this COVID came. A lot of infrastructure has to be built there. A lot of new training has to go there because for mRNA, they were absolutely new to this technology. So yes, we had a lot of discussion, a lot of intense discussion in between, and somehow the expertise of these very modern cutting-edge technology was very limited. So that has taken it. So, but again, I said what the blessing in disguise was that we have recovered as a team, which is the government agencies, private industry, and academia during COVID period time. We have to keep this momentum, and we have to learn what are the weaknesses we have seen in the system and work on that, and we can be the global leader in overall, because we want to move from generic leadership to also towards the innovative leadership.
Certainly.
And also make Atmanirbhar powers. So we should not be dependent on outside, because these blockades will be there if this kind of pandemic comes. So we should be trying to do the self-sufficiency as early as possible.
Absolutely. And our effort and endeavor should be to make our systems more resilient, and it's only upward from there. So with that having been said, I'll have to wind up the discussion. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on this special edition on Sansad TV and sharing your thoughts with us and our viewers. Absolute pleasure to have you all three on the program with us. So that's it from us on this special broadcast, viewers. Thank you for your time as well. Take care and keep watching Sansad TV.